Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 9th meeting of the Building Subcommittee. We have a attendance sheet going around. Please sign it. We do have a quorum, so please sign it. That way we ensure that we have a proper notification of who's here and the fact that we do indeed have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is public comment. As we've done the last couple of meetings, it's a lot easier if you do have public comment, just come up and give your name and address rather than having to sign a sheet. So if anyone has any public comment, now is the opportunity to provide us with that. Okay. We do have members of the public here, so thank you for attending. The next item would be approving the previous meeting minutes of August 15th. Most of us were there that day, so hopefully I had a chance to read the minutes. There's a motion in order to accept and approve the minutes.
So moved.
For a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent.
Rob, I'll just abstain because I wasn't there.
Yes. The first item, I'll turn over to the superintendent, a review of the new middle school and the CIP. Superintendent?
Thank you. All right, so we have a presentation to go over tonight, which will show you the progress we're making regarding the plans for the new Whitford Middle School project, along with our capital improvement plan. So we'll start with that presentation as we go through. If there's any questions, and we can answer those questions as we go through the slides, and ask any members from our Perkins team or Rouse as well. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll just quickly, high level, just go over the discussion points. Let's see, who's flipping oh.
Touch the middle.
Yes.
Touch it. There we go.
Oh.
It disappeared on you.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, thank you. We're happy to be here tonight. As Dr. Duva said, we'll be reviewing the progress of the submission. We're going to start with Jacobs doing an overall timeline and talk about the submission logistics. Then we'll move to Mike, who will give us an update on design. We have with us today Mike Pugh from CMTA, our mechanical engineer, who will be reviewing the life cycle cost analysis. We'll talk a little bit about sustainability before we go into that. And then Mark McCarthy from Perkins Eastman, our office, will lead us through the estimate, which we received and spent the last week going over. And then we move into capital improvement projects, which Inga will bring us through, and then finally questions and answers is our discussion is our last topic. So moving on, we'll have Inga go through the timeline.
And good evening, everyone. All right, so we are moving forward towards our ultimate deadline next week. Well, this week, next week. To submit the stage to write. So the deadline is the 15th. We're allowed to submit on the 16th because 15th is a Sunday, by end of business. Wright did launch a portal this year. We're the first ones to be lucky enough to use the portal. So they let us know just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that now instead of submitting like a PDF that with all the documents in it, we are now going to be uploading it to the portal that's split by each section that follows basically the checklist. That slightly changed our approach because we were kind of collecting documents one way, now we're collecting them slightly different way, but in the end it's a simpler process because the portal basically allows us to submit multiple files. They don't have to be all bound into 1,000 pages, and anyone can access the portal. So right now I have access and Dr. Duva has access, but we can grant access to other people to view the files that are in there. Once we do submit, what we do plan is we basically follow each section, but we will have a Google Drive link with PDFs in the same format so that we can share with everyone. It will not be one long 1,000-page PDF like what we're used to seeing in previous years and previous submissions, but anyone can click on each document and review. We can certainly also print one copy if needed. So today we're presenting sort of the final progress on where we are with the submission and certain new items. and then we will also present to the school committee on the 12th. And then the town council will be on the 23rd, which is okay by right. We already checked, and that meeting was moved, so that's acceptable. Also, we will have a chance to amend the submission, so we can issue an addendum within 2 weeks with any comments, concerns, or any items that we may have misrepresented or missed, or perhaps we have to add, or maybe something wasn't completed because we're kind of on a short timeline with some moving parts in it. Any questions? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it got a little squished. Well, that's okay. Sorry about that. Okay. The title. So, just high-level overview. We have been showing the slide, but before the slide was kind of talking only about the bond. Now we've added the CIPs as they have been approved at the last school committee, and we have received an estimate which the Perkins Eastman team and us will talk a little bit later for Wickford Middle School. That estimate is still tracking on the same target. The CIP projects, it is also within similar target in the $64 million range that we are submitting for. And as we previously have discussed, the 137,200,000 is the bonded funds. The total for the submission to RIDE is going to be for 141,453,470. Assuming about 4 million of sort of like that revolving fund cushion, where the projects we're hoping to be in the submission and approved by RIDE for reimbursement, but those projects may or may not happen depending on the availability of funds by the school department. Some savings may be applied to those projects from other items, but we wanted to make sure we have enough in there to sort of choose from. So, and I don't know if there's any questions about that. Sorry. Next. Okay. So we started developing the timeline. There is a little bit of still moving parts in there. I think this is kind of an initial pass. So high level referendum November 5th, then the stage 2 submission to RIDE is will be approved somewhere, I think it's December 17th where the meeting is currently. It might move sometimes in December by the Council of Primary and Secondary Education. Until that happens, the district, even though the referendum may have been approved, the district cannot start work but can prepare, can get some contracts in place, maybe RFP for CMs, but everything has to be contingent on the approval. So basically until the end of the year that happens. I'm sure there's also appropriation of funds that has to happen. So we're assuming sort of start of design of the next design phase, which is another schematic design. It's stage 3. It also starts with schematic design development and construction documents for Wickford Middle School right after the first of the year. The way the schedule is shown, it assumes some possible early release packages like site work, steel. We may have to work a little bit on that, maybe discuss it. This was sort of a last minute deliverable that we have to submit to RIDE as well. We are assuming at roughly 22 months total construction, 18 months of building construction, and then 2 months or so with building demolition that follows the building. Once the building is built and we know and we're confident that we're ready to move the students in, that the existing building can be removed, and then there's obviously field work, site work, and landscaping and closeout. The way I put the schedule together, I was on June, yes, July and August. So I was kind of assuming to demolish the existing building during summer period, so that you can do that loud abatement and demolition in that time, because the new building will be already built, and it will be already kind of in the move-in phase, so that the existing building can come down, but then it will not cause disruption during beginning of school year. By then there will be just site work remaining to be done, not site work, landscaping and field work to be done. And then certainly there's some commissioning, landscaping and stuff, that might take a few months, and 4 to 6 usually, but I put 4 in. The other note I have here on the side is the CIP project. So there's 5 years to do the project. The plan for the projects to sort of continue happening, obviously with most work happening during summer periods, during winter periods, perhaps some work can be done, some design and preparation could be done during the school year, and then the execution kind of in a summer slammer. Perhaps there are some things that can be done during school, but it's sort of an ongoing, revolving process to do the roofs, the HVAC, and they'll be going through the next 3 to 4 years. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, next. I think this is more of a just kind of a header slide, segueing into the Bickford Middle School presentation, just and then in the stage 2 submission for the Bickford Middle School presentation, and then we will also talk about CIP projects at the end. So I have a similar slide at the end. I'm not sure we need to talk about anything here.
Okay.
So you guys can take part.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. This is really here for reference, so nothing has changed since the last time we presented, so we can come back to this for Q&A, or if there are any questions now from anyone, we can move on. What we wanted to share with you are some new images. We've been working on some images that we can put out there for the public, for open forums, for open houses, and put on the library on posters, etc. Sorry for standing back to you as well. But this is a great view. I think shows that in context. You're standing at the intersection. Tower Hill Road is off to the left, so we're looking, I guess, east northeast. The existing building sits over here where it says athletic fields. But it really shows the scope all in one image of this fantastic new facility and fields that the town is going to be getting. The next image.
Can I ask one question? And this is
Oh, sure.
actually, I almost feel uncomfortable asking it because it's not important at all. But I can foresee the general public having a question. I think it's legitimate.
Sure.
Is it our plan to plant trees like that all along Tower Hill Road? Because that's not the way the property looks right now.
That's so funny. Mike Waterman had the same question. So it's actually, the number of trees is actually correct along here, existing trees. I think
Those are
there's-
existing trees?
They look very healthy here, so maybe we can tone them down.
Okay.
So I went through on the survey.
I was happy to hear that. Then I realized they were
Yeah.
existing.
They're just tall and
Maybe they're not as bushy. Height-wise, they're correct.
Because I can drive by and see the school and the field perfectly.
Oh, so
And
you'll
I
see.
actually walked in on them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
it's high.
kind of jumping ahead, but this
Okay.
is, these are the actual trees in the same view.
Okay.
Bird's eye
So
view
from-
graphics of all.
Yeah. But you're the second
I
person.
had the same question.
Okay,
So I was curious.
So I don't
if
feel
we
like
add-
I'm comfortable
add
addressing
coverage,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
And we spread them out a little.
All right.
Anything else?
Maybe we
Dave?
could put less trees, even though that's how many trees are.
Well, maybe just for this image, we can manipulate that to make it look, okay.
I just need to throw up on plan, was the plant trees? I wanted to, we had to talk to DOT, Adam White for sidewalk, I'm just curious, so those are existing trees. Excellent.
Those are existing trees.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, let me show you, sure, yeah, okay, good question. The next view, I think, last time, Aaron, I think you asked, to see the front view of the school, and we're still working on it, so here's the front view, a placeholder, just cropped in the view, placeholder for the signage like we had in the consolidated school. A nice spot right up front as you pull in. This is the entrance for the car queue, so all the visitors will come up from this angle here. You have the bus queue coming off Tower Hill Road, and then that peninsula that we saw in the previous view that kind of collects all the students and takes you right to the front door. And the scale of the building is kind of stepped down intentionally at the front door, being a middle school. But it's this nice welcoming canopy, the upturns, and you have your cafeteria, performance space right in there. So I think it's a very nice and welcoming image here. And these are seagulls, not geese. That's someone someone was concerned about. And then that view from Tower Hill Road. So the existing, the topography, the new and adjusted topography is taken into account in these images as well. So you can see here, there's actually, you know, a few foot drop as you round off, as you head onto the site from Tower Hill Road. So all these perspectives are very, quite realistic. So this is, you know, standing just across the street at Tower Hill Road. The building is set down a little bit on site, but actually it comes, you know, as you get to the northwest corner of the site, you're on grade. So there's some grade change there. And this, I think, illustrates nicely how the media center and outdoor learning space is pulled back significantly from the road, and kind of nestled up nicely towards the heart of the school. And then, as we talked about before, that kind of gabled end traditional form, and hopefully it reflects your town, your community. And there's plenty of time moving forward, you know, assuming this moves forward, with a successful referendum, that we can tweak and continue to massage the design. It's not final, again, this is preliminary, but we're trying to kind of hit a good chord here with the aesthetics. And then kind of continuing the tour, kind of walking north on down Tower Hill Road, looking back, you know, kind of with your back towards more the residential portion as it transitions to more residential. Again, start to see the scale of the building and how it responds to the context of the neighborhood. So we have these images. We will address, we'll prune the trees a bit, and we'll get these images to you guys for use probably tomorrow.
Can we correct that color branding for WMS? I don't think we're purple.
It's supposed to be blue.
Yeah, it is
Right.
supposed to
I can
be
Photoshop that blue.
It just needs to be blue.
Yeah.
Royal blue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's.
'cause we actually,
Everything was blue when.
Yeah.
It was, but it's
Because
just.
just bring the
it's
color
not-
okay,
that's
it just-
coming off, so.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
It sounds silly, but people
Yeah.
No,
will
that's-
get nervous if we
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
the mascot and the colors.
Of course.
no.
Is that okay with the print and the
Yeah.
font for place? Okay. I'll fix that.
I'm looking at the principal to see if that's the right wild cat paw.
The paw, that paw's, yeah, that looks like a good paw.
And that's it. We have plans in here for reference, so we can come back to these with any questions. And that's it. Sustainability.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, we're just quickly touching on, we have, as I mentioned, we have Mike Pugh here from CMTA, our engineer, who's gonna talk to us about life cycle, he's done a life cycle analysis about different options, related to the net zero energy. But we just wanted to, bring up, you've seen this slide before, we've, shown it a while back, but just that it goes beyond just the systems. Sustainability and these approaches are gonna be opportunities to enhance the curriculum, the school as a tool for learning. And the team is always working that way, and we've been discussing that with North Kingstown. The other point to it is the kinds of approaches that we're taking, making sure that we mitigate glare, so these points, daylighting, thermal comfort, acoustics, air quality, all those things reduce stressors for the teachers, the administrators, and the students that are in the building every single day. Oops, and I just accidentally hit something. So we just switched to Mike, and then finally, all of this is getting, there's the Northeast CHIPS that we're going to be using and documenting all these steps that we're taking, and North Kingstown is committed to that, as well as RIDE. And here's just an image of the scorecard. And because we're going to design towards the net zero energy, that is really going to allow us to hit a very high level in terms of credits. So I'm going to switch it to Mike.
Do you think we'll try to get LEED certification for those, either silver or?
So the project right now isn't specifically, going for LEED accreditation, but I'm sure we would be, equivalent to one a high level in a LEED certification, but it's not specifically going after that accreditation.
But
We're
we-
using the CHIPS.
We could though, if we wanted to.
Yeah, it does cost money,
Yes.
costs more, and yes.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
No,
oh,
just
yes.
as a, and Mike, better than me, that would be a decision we probably need to make in the next stage, right? Because part of LEED is also during the design process,
Yeah.
not just.
That's why I was curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so one of the big project goals is net zero energy. What that means is over the course of 12 months that with respect to the utility, that there is, you haven't drawn any from the utility. this is an all-electric building, so the only, utility that we have is, that we're concerned with here is the electric. And, the way you get there is, starting with energy efficient systems for, the mechanical, the HVAC, plumbing, all that. And that's what we've built into the design. That combined with a really energy efficient building envelope, which Perkins Eastman is working on that. For my life cycle cost analysis, they had provided the early stages of the building envelope requirements. So you take all that, and what net zero energy, so the important thing to remember there is that that's over the course of 12 months. It's not on a daily basis. In the summer when the school is operating, it's a sunny day, and maybe it's one of the days when school's not in session, you're going to be producing, the school would be producing more energy, more electricity than it's using. At that point, it's giving it back to the utility company, and then in the winter, when that all-electric school on a design day is operating, maybe it's a cloudy day, it's going to be drawing from the utility. So the important thing to remember is it's net zero over the course of 12 months, and there will still be an electric bill at the end of, at the end of the month, not just the year, but each month there will likely be an electric bill. And that's because, like I mentioned earlier, in the winter you're going to generate more than, or in the winter you're going to use more than you generate. In the summer you're going to generate more than you use. But the PV system would be sized so that at the end of the year you're going to be net zero.
So, two questions on that.
Yeah.
Because we have the similar thing in town, but it's actually remote. It's remote net metering. So my question on this is, for the summer, when the school's not in operation, in the sun, we're gonna be generating much more energy than we're using.
Yes.
You just said this. In the winter, we're gonna be using more than we're generating, most likely. Is the summer excess energy put in a pool that we then can remotely access? So that way, while in August, our, what we have generated will give us a zero bill, there's excess credits.
Right.
In November, can we use those excess credits to help pay our November bill?
Towards
Right.
those bills.
So no, with, the way that works, this works is more of an instantaneous basis. So if you're generating more than you're using, you're selling it back to the utility company. And then, in the winter, when you're using more, you're buying it from them. And the utility company does, I think right now it was roughly like 19 cents a kilowatt hour, I think, for the school. So you're buying it at that rate. When you sell it back to the utility company, they're not buying it at 19 cents. So you're definitely getting, that's where the utility bill the electric bill you have is from that difference, of what you've sold back, at that lower rate than what you're buying it for.
So we still would be getting bills in the winter months?
Yes, you
Most
would
likely.
still have bills in the winter months, much lower.
Much less, yes.
Because with the energy efficient systems, envelope, all that, everything is greatly reduced. But yes, there will still be, the utility company, Rhode Island Energy, is in the business of staying in business, so they're not, which is why you can't necessarily bank what you've produced and have them store it and.
So it's
buy
not
it.
necessarily credits, we're actually selling our excess, and that would be revenue towards the school department,
Yeah,
by selling the revenue,
Well-
by selling the excess.
it wouldn't necessarily be revenue, because at the end of the year, you're still paying.
Right, but that's, okay, it's probably
They're
more.
not sending us money though, that's not how it works, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but not sending, so then there is a credit.
sorry, yes, I thought you meant.
That's how we work on the town, okay, so,
Yes.
so there is a credit, so when we're selling our excess energy towards them, they're putting it in a credit, so in November, when we're using more than we're delivering, they'll use that credit.
Yes.
Okay, good, that's how we do it.
I thought you meant a credit,
That's okay.
like, for the energy you've
Nope.
produced, and can we use that same energy
Perfect,
back?
okay.
But
And
I
we get that, all that would be on the bill, that's gonna show what was
Yeah.
used, what we
For the net
have, and
metering,
then
yep.
you have a reduced payment
Yes.
that month.
Yep.
And then, of course, this is just energy, of course, we're gonna get, our bills are only partial, the bill they received is only part of energy. I mean, there's, the bill is, there's distribution, so we'll still be getting those bills.
The supply
Again,
and
but
demand,
just for
yeah.
clarification, I know you know this, I'm just
Yep.
putting it off of public records, because
Correct.
we do with the town right now, and so, again, we are saving a ton of money, as is the school department, but we still get bills for the other portions of the energy, that's just one portion.
Yep.
Excellent, all right, just
Yes.
wanted to clarify that, thank you.
Yeah, and I think I may have touched on it, just that last bullet point there about the PV panels. There'll be a slide later in here where it shows a very preliminary layout of the PV panels on the roof. And the number of panels, the quantity of panels and the layout and everything is sized so that it will end up at net zero. So, you know, as we're working through the design and everything, we've got a, you know, a conservative estimate on the roof now of what it'll require, and it, you know, everything currently will fit on the roof to get to net zero.
Do they have an estimate for how long PV panels last for, like what their lifespan is?
Roughly 20 years.
Alright, so about the same, well, our roofs would last a little bit longer than that, but
What's that?
I think we're doing 30-year roofs, correct?
Oh, roofs, yeah.
So, so these would be about 20-ish, might need to be replaced before the roofs need to be
Yeah.
replaced. Okay.
And they're actually in the, one of the charts with the life cycle cost analysis will show like at year 20 where there's a bump in cost, and that's for replacement of equipment like
Perfect.
panels.
Thank you.
Any other? Let's see if I can get this right. So, as we go about getting this energy efficient building, the design, one of the key metrics is energy use intensity. It says up there, which is essentially how much energy is used per square foot for the building. And by looking at it in that way, you're able to compare buildings of different sizes, different ages, and give it a performance metric that you can use to, you know, compare this building to Whitford Middle School. You know, how much energy does it use per year per square foot? And on the right here, this is a typical building. I don't know, how do I get back to what I just undid? I put the
Number up there.
header up there.
Did you zoom in?
Oh,
I don't know,
you did.
maybe,
You might have-
I'm afraid to touch.
Oh,
uh,
it was at 72, I think.
It's still there, it's just really late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see it, put it back on the other slides.
There we go, I'll do.
Is there under view, is like a full screen or top right, where it says view on the top?
We have it printed too, so don't worry.
I'm guessing.
All right, good point, I forgot about that.
Fifth page.
There we go. So this 72 is an average school building in Rhode Island, and you know it averages new buildings, old buildings, everything. The average energy use intensity is 72. What we're targeting for this building is an EUI of 25, which is for a geothermal building, a geothermal school. That's we expect to be able to hit that target. We're hoping to build up as the design progresses. It'll show that we're going to be a little bit lower than that. One of the key pieces here with a EUI of 25 is with Rhode Island Energy and their incentives. If you hit an EUI of 25, so with EUI, the lower the number, the better. And if you hit an EUI of 25 or lower, the incentive is there's an extra $1.25 per square foot in incentive than if it was above 25, which I think it's only $1, but you get $2.25 a square foot. So that is another benefit of that target EUI there is the incentive with Rhode Island Energy. Thank you. And from the cost estimate that we received last week, we were able to go through and compare. So one of the things we did leading up to the cost estimate is first option there, the geothermal ground source heat pump. That is the basis of design that we have. And in order to show a comparison of the different systems, we also called out the specs for option 2 and an option 3, which option 2 is an air source heat pump, and option 3 is a hybrid between geothermal and air source, just to give it a baseline. Sometimes we include a baseline, or a true baseline of, you know, like what the existing system would be of a geothermal, or I'm sorry, a fossil fuel boiler just an electric chiller. And, but here we know that we're going with, not going with that we're gonna be fossil fuel free. So, went through, used the numbers from the estimate, and this top line shows the first cost for building for the HVAC portion of the school. And the geothermal system, which we have, is 8.3 million. An air source heat pump system is 2 million less, and then that option 3, the hybrid, is closer to the geothermal. And as we go down through there, we'll see how, you know, all these costs end up. You know, right now that's 2 million more. The annual energy cost, that actually, I think I need to tweak these. They'll be lower than that when we have the net zero piece of it. So I don't want you to be alarmed if you see those numbers, but relatively speaking, those are all the same. And that's what this is just looking at each of these items in relation to each other. The annual maintenance cost for all 3 systems about the same. Future replacement costs, which you had touched on with the PV panels, that's one piece. And the geothermal, a little bit less. The air source heat pump, 4.2 million, and then the hybrid system, because you have to replace both geothermal and the air source heat pump, you know, it's a little bit more. Incentives and grants, one of the big things here is the geothermal is, and the hybrid system. They both have considerable rebates or incentives involved with that, as opposed to the air source heat pump is not. The reason there is that the geothermal in option 1 and then the geothermal portion of option 3, those are renewable energy sources, and that, and like PV is also renewable energy source. So that's where the bigger incentives come from, like the Inflation Reduction Act as well as Rhode Island Energy. And so when all is said and done, at the bottom here, the 30-year life cycle cost, we looked at it without the Inflation Reduction Act factored in, and as you can see, at the end of 30 years, this is about 5.5 million less than what initially was the lowest first cost. And then this option 3 is about in the middle. And the next line, that bottom line there, is the 30-year life cycle cost with the IRA included. This chart has those numbers in graphic format. What you can see is that yellow gold line, whatever this is, that's the option 2, which is that lowest first cost at 6.3 million. And then the other 2 options, 1 and 3, they're kind of overlapping here. But starting out at year 0, when the school is built, you know, roughly $8 million cost for options 1 and 3. And then as you go along, in about year 2, year 3 is where the incentives for the Inflation Reduction Act would be recognized, and that's where you get that drop of just over 3 million here. And so as soon as year 3, the option 1 soon is already a lower cost than option 2, which was, you know, 2 million less, but it quickly makes up the difference. And then as you come out here, these bumps here are where equipment is being replaced. At year 15, I think that's probably it's the air source heat pump portion. And then over here at year 20 is the photovoltaic panels. And for options 1 and 3, this is some of the heat pumps and the PV being replaced. So at year 30, when you get out to the end, geothermal significantly less on that 30-year life cycle cost than even option 3 or option 2. So yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah, please.
Those incentives at the second, third year, how do you realize that? How do you get those incentives?
So you have documents for all the equipment installed. The contractor will produce slips, you know, for the equipment installed, and then they all have to be. You have to work with a tax accountant and get those submitted. And there's a lot of paperwork involved, but for $3 million, it's really not that much paperwork. And just documenting the equipment that was installed, and, you know, there's a report and a narrative that goes along, you know, describing the systems and everything, noting that they're, renewable energy sources and that they qualify.
Where does the money come from though? From the state or from the
Oh,
utility?
sorry, no, from the federal government. That's
Okay.
part of the, in August of 2022 is the Inflation Reduction Income Tax credits were already there. It just in August of 22, they, got enhanced, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And so, yeah, all that money comes, and that is direct pay to the school district.
School district. Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, that money is, you know, the school, town, whoever, you know, it's theirs to use however they want at that point, so. Any other, I mean, there's a lot here, so please.
Did you say we'd be able to get those numbers adjusted before we put this PowerPoint up? Or is that, did I hear you say that correctly? That you
Just
want
that
to adjust
annual
the
energy
numbers?
cost, I think that might be a little bit high, I can look
Yeah,
at
if we
that,
could just
but,
get that adjusted before we
Yeah,
put it out
absolutely.
to the community, that would be great.
yeah.
So I just go quick, just so I understand this, this is the different HVA system options, but it also includes the PV system and the cost, like, so the geothermal system is what
Yeah.
does is the.
Yeah, so, and I should have said that, yes, these are three
Right.
HVAC system options, yes.
Which is separate than the PV, but PV is factored into here in terms of the usage of that, of the,
Yes,
yep.
yep. So, the intent to go through
We
and,
just have these for reference in case anyone had a question, that you can just highlight where the geothermal.
I think we shared these last time as well.
Yeah.
so.
So-
okay,
Could you explain how the geothermal works?
absolutely. Yeah, can you go back to,
Yeah.
yep, so, let's see where to start. Out in the parking lot is where the geothermal portion is. What's shown here are two sets of 40 wells for 80 total, and they're approximately 500 feet deep. And connecting each of these wells is a set of pipe, two sets of pipes for each well, and they bring water from groundwater from these wells into the school, or into the mechanical room here, and there will be a heat exchanger in there, which just basically separates the groundwater from the water that goes into the school. So you have geothermal wells out under the parking lot, and then in the school, these are representing, so geothermal water comes in here, there's a heat exchanger, and then there's a series of pumps that distribute this water out to the, throughout the building. There are heat these are representing heat pumps, and so there's two pipes that go, the water goes out, there's a compressor in here that either heats or cools. It heats in, like, if this was, this is north, so say down here, the sun is shining facing this side, and there's cooling required here, but on the north side, it requires heating. They can simultaneously, these can cool while that's heating, and, just that same water is circulated throughout. So basically, that groundwater is brought into the building, and then, with a heat exchanger separated so that, there's water circulating throughout that feeds the heat pumps.
What's the temperature of that water coming out of the ground?
What's that like? Well, depends on the time of year, but 45-ish, 45 to 50. And then it's balanced over the year so that, there's no groundwater temperature rise or drop or anything.
Does that water have to be treated in any manner before it's introduced into that pipe system?
So the groundwater, no, because you don't wanna do anything to that because you're pumping it back in and, and that's why, there's a heat exchanger there, which basically, it's a way to separate the water from the ground, this groundwater coming in, separate that water from the water that's circulated throughout the building. And that water that's circulated throughout the building, that is treated water.
So the water that we drink, wash, cook food with is coming out of the same ground source that we're gonna heat and cool the building with. You getting that right? So we're pumping a bunch of water out of the ground.
Yep.
We're gonna route some to heat and cool the building. We're
Yes.
gonna route others to come out of the faucets, to take a drink out of,
Well, those geothermal wells, that is different from the water that is.
okay, the water source. that
Yeah,
we're-
the water, it's a different water source. I
Okay.
mean, is it all in the ground? Yes, but it's
Okay.
different.
All right.
This well field here is not supplying the, drinking water or anything like that.
Wanted to be sure, thank you. Okay.
Absolutely. There's lots of questions and concerns about it, and that's definitely a good one.
So it gets dumped right back into the ground after it goes whipping through our system?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, like I said, it only, that groundwater only gets as far as this mechanical room, and then it's sent back to the ground.
I see.
There's a separation so that the water that's in the building, it's only in the building recirculating.
Right.
Yeah, and it, goes through a heat exchanger, so it, transfers heat between, that groundwater
Yep.
and the water circulating in the building.
All right, yeah, any other questions or thoughts? Great, thank you, Mike.
Okay, I'm gonna go over the estimate, where we're at. Hopefully this will be pretty straightforward. So the budget for the middle school, is $77,069,570. That is where we are at the estimate as well. And I'll talk a little bit about what goes into that, and how we got to that number. Is that right? Yeah, so what you see, in the hard cost, the $61,355,980. So that comes from our cost estimate, based on the drawings, specifications from architects and engineers. Other things that are in there are contingency, which is ultimately built into the price of, the unit price, of the, materials. There is some contingency, design contingency in that. We worked on that. Inga talked about that in terms of time. You know, we're assuming a 22-month construction time, so, you know, how the, escalation is factored, time is a component of that. So that's how we get to the 61 million, soft cost, and I'll say the soft costs and, the other costs, the FF&E, demolition abatement, those are limited or prescribed by RIDE, so there's a factor there that RIDE limits us to. That's how we wind up coming up with that exact number of 77 million. So soft costs includes the design team's fees, the OPM's fees, there's, excuse me? Commissioning, there's also a contingency, so there's a client or a project contingency in that portion as well. So there's a couple of places where contingency comes into play. And then, as it says, the other costs are FF&E, demolition and abatement. So this is how we got to 77,069,570.
Can you
So-
clarify what FF&E stands for?
Excuse me?
What the acronym FF&E stands for?
Sure, furniture, fixtures and equipment, right?
Yeah. Would you all mind just writing that out, just for
Oh, yeah,
folks
that's
like
a good
for,
idea.
like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah,
What we usually say is, if you turn the building upside down and shake it,
Yeah.
everything that falls is FF&E.
You can write that too, that's fine.
Hey, quick question for
This
you,
is
are
definitely
the
integral.
town permits included in your estimate?
I think some are, we're also assuming that some of those fees are waived.
So
Yeah.
we're assuming that the building permit is waived because it's a school project and it's typically waived in the district, but the ADA permit will not be waived, so you'll have to carry the ADA permit.
So those local permits have been waived, are not
Typically,
included
local
in that
permits
number.
on public projects are waived because this is the municipality, so they won't build their own.
Is that- is that-
That was mentioned in one of the calls.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
yes.
That's the one.
Mhm.
Yes.
But the ADA is a state, so you cannot waive state permits.
But I confirmed that in one of the calls, so.
yeah.
just a couple of the strategies, which you can imagine that we go through, a lot of work goes into getting to the project to be on budget. Two real buckets of things that we look for so we get back a rough estimate. We look for, did they get everything right in the estimate? Is there anything we can look for efficiencies in terms of the layout of the building, materials, because we are, as we've said a number of times, very early in the process. So we're basing a budget on a relative fraction of the amount of drawings that will go into the final design. So hence the design contingency, but also trying to, we work with a good estimator, but, they need information from us to get that right. The other thing we've looked at is, we have a few things I'll go over that we are carrying as alternates. So let me just
When does that process happen, the project estimate part? In the timeline, like when would that usually happen process-wise?
What was it? So-
We have several times, so
Yeah.
each stage will go through a cost estimate, so we
Got
just
it.
finished that, today.
So
We'll do that
this-
again, go ahead.
Yeah, so
Eric.
this one is stage 2 estimate, so this is what defines like your right sort of project. Then you go through the schematic design, you have to have an estimate that's reconciled between the independent estimator and the CMs or the construction company's estimating department. Then there is a DD, the design development, that goes through the same, and then 60% construction documents, that would be your last estimate. So you have 3 more after this.
I guess what I was just curious about was like making sure that we're transparent about the timeline, because things might change throughout the process, and so if that second reevaluation happens after the bond vote, I wanna make sure that we're really clear about that might happen, and that is not because we're waiting till after the bond vote, but how the process was working, so that's kinda where my question was coming from.
We could put maybe in the slide where we had the schedule,
Yeah, that would be helpful.
instead of design, we can also put like schematic design,
Yeah, that's
estimating,
Mhm.
and ride review,
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
stage
Thank you.
3, so we can list them out.
That's great, thanks.
But just to be clear, I think, Amy, you know better than us, I think, about this, but, the ride reimbursement is set at this point, right,
Yeah.
at stage 2, regardless of what happens in stage 3, 4, okay.
Ride reimbursement is, well, ride sets the tone for the reimbursement, yeah.
Right. Okay, and so we've looked at a few things as alternates. The advantage of this strategy of alternates means we continue to draw this, we continue to design with all of these components in there, with the idea that as we get further along, as we get more information about the drawings, hopefully get more competitive with bids and so forth, that these will fall within the project budget. So a couple of things we looked at were, as far as the site goes, we reduced some of the landscaping elements, some of the elements that are in the learning courtyards. I think and at this point, we're looking at percentages, so can we take out 20% of plantings, let's say, in order to, a strategy. Not that we're hoping those things all come back into it, but it's a way of getting to the budget we need to right now, where we're at a very, very early concept stage. The softball field, one of the things we're looking at is maintaining the infield, and only because of the parking and the geothermal and so forth, is doing renovations to the outfield of the softball. If it works out, we'd bring back the full softball field replacement, and a few things about the baseball, the multi-purpose irrigation system, bleachers. I think we talked about that. Oftentimes people come with camp chairs, so the bleachers are fairly small, I believe, at the field, so that's something we'll carry as an alternate along with dugouts. The building ad alternates, a couple of things. So the building, as Mike has shown it, has a regulation middle school gym. I think at some point the committee had requested looking at a larger gym, so that's, we'll continue to draw it that way, but that's something that's, at this point, would be an alternate. The same thing with the cafeteria. So the cafeteria, the base bid, what's on budget, is a cafeteria that's sized for the enrollment with, I think it's probably 3 lunch periods. At one point, the committee asked, well, could we look at a larger not for lunchtime, but for seating, for performances, because it's a cafeteria. So that slight increase, which wouldn't be, which is kind of beyond the ride regulation, will carry as an alternate. And then finally, a generator, again, that was, I think, a discussion that was driven at one point about shelter and this kind of conversation. So could we look at a larger generator? That's a pretty easy alternate for us just to swap out, but it's the, sort of the, I forget, it's 110 or something, the generator that we're carrying.
125.
125.
That'd be a diesel generator?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we just get for the gym and the cafeteria, making it smaller number of individuals that'll fit within that, just so we know the difference?
Tell you what
In
the numbers,
size.
yes,
Yeah.
yep, we can add that, yep.
You mean for
Right.
the gym, if
So-
you were using it for an event?
For an
it's-
event, same thing with the cafeteria, we
Mhm.
know it's
Right.
going down to the smaller cafeteria, it's going to fit 3 lunches.
Right.
But for a performance, how many
Yeah, do we,
Sure.
individuals can fit?
Yeah.
I think we had
in that
heard,
space? So-
the reason that the school committee had requested that is we heard really clearly from the middle school, both middle schools, but particularly it was DMS, I remember that was talking about, but I assume it's a similar problem at WMS, is they couldn't gather their whole student body in any space, and that was a challenge for them, or when they were bringing in adults for, ceremonies and different things, they'd either have to do it at the high school or something, so I think that was our intent, was to try to get a space that could try to accommodate it, so if they did wanna have it at their school, they were able to.
Unfortunately, if it's larger than the ride regulation.
Yeah, you only
then
get the
they
reimbursement on that
won't
part.
support it.
I think we know that, but also being realistic about how the building's gonna be used, and also the fact that this will be a building that won't just be used by the school community, but also the larger community. I think that was where that was a priority for us.
And it's not a huge exclusion if they do go that way,
Mhm.
so it's a decision to be
Mhm.
made
Yep.
because of the building versus a little bit of.
Yeah, I think to Dr. Duva's point, that data would help make that decision, so that's good.
Mhm.
2 quick questions. The current generator that's in there, 125 kilowatt, that addresses the issue that we talked about having the gym and kitchen facilities as part of a shelter? The 125?
125, no, we would
No.
need the we would need the 250. But if I remember from conversations, you go with the 125, then you can add on later, like there's an adapter, or is that a
Well,
different
since
generator?
Mike is here, we'll.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
The National Electric Code requires a generator hookup on site. So you've got that 125 KW generator, but then if that generator fails or say, for whatever reason, so the code now requires you to have a generator hookup where you could get a rental generator, back it in, and just hook that up. And that's what we were talking about, you could size that system to support more than the 125.
And again, I probably understood it incorrectly. On one of the calls that we were on, I thought the conversation was, and please correct me, that the generator in the current plans will address the very, very small need of us utilizing the gym as a shelter, as we do right now at Woodford Middle, and the alternative, the add-on, would open up more of the school. That's how I understood the call.
Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. So, initially, there was a 125 generator that satisfies the life safety and would protect food if there was a blackout. Then we upped it to a 250 for the shelter, and then there was a consideration of adding sort of I'm just gonna call it a switch that would allow that generator to also, not just serve the gym, but
Right.
go beyond.
Which we didn't need, we being the EMA. We
Right,
did
so
not need
this
that.
actually, what we're saying is that, right now, the project, the estimate supports the 125 to go to the 250, but without that switch, would cost, that's an add alternate.
So,
And then there's another add alternate to
Gotcha.
add the switch.
so
yeah.
then address my concern on behalf of EMA, that our current building functions as a shelter, but the new building will not unless we allow this alternate.
based on the definition of what you're, not a FEMA shelter.
No,
but
just a
yeah,
small
this-
shelter, just a
right.
gym, the basic shelter, like we have at Wickford Middle right now. Our largest shelter is a combined shelter at South Kingstown. But for internally, we always have Wickford Middle.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that this new building will not accommodate that
Mhm.
unless we pass the alternate. That's a concern. I'm not
So
sure.
you would need a 250 kilowatt in order.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is now. I would be surprised if we had a 250 generator in that building currently. Cause I think what I'm
Yeah,
hearing you
no,
say
it's-
is that we wanna keep at least what we have now, correct, Ralph? If not,
Um,
expanding it?
Unless what we have now wasn't working as a shelter. I always assumed it was. That's a good question. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that existing generator is supporting, but
Do you happen to know the size of it?
You can note it as a
Okay.
concern and
I can-
look into it,
no.
right?
That's why, again, it just,
Should
I
we-
know when we had the
Yeah.
meeting, we just said that, we just
Yeah.
want confirmation that we can open up the gym and I think the kitchen facility, and that was fine. So if we could address that,
Yeah,
just
we
so,
can-
again, that's how I left the meeting, maybe I misunderstood it. And then could someone elaborate very quickly on what you mean by full softball field replacement as an alternate? In other words, so let's say we don't go with the alternate, what are we gonna have?
Right. See if I can pull up the site.
And we also have Matt here, so.
So, we don't have here is, so the existing softball field is slightly north of
Yes.
this, so it comes in here.
Yes.
So what we would do, and there's, considerable cost to wholesale move the softball field, so the idea would be that we would be able to, adjust the parking loop, maybe lose a few spots, and keep the infield, because we would still need to do a lot of work there, we'd have to come in and rebuild the outfield, but keep the softball infield intact.
So I guess, I'm sure you answered it, I apologize.
No.
If we don't go with the alternate, what will the softball field look like? I'm not hearing that.
The old infield with a revised outfield, is what I
Yeah.
heard.
Correct.
So just from anecdotally,
Yeah.
our current softball infield is
Gross.
totally deficient.
Yeah.
It's like a pond when it rains. Yeah.
There's
So it's-
definitely some grading work and
Yeah,
stuff.
so I mean,
Mhm.
I think the idea of trying to save the infield, I'm not sure that that's viable anyway.
Okay.
And
What were some other options? Like, obviously, you're giving us, like, you took these out because we have to hit that number,
Right.
because that's the number we gave you to hit. And so were there other things that you considered? Like, I'm assuming you picked softball field because that was the lowest, like, impact to student education and learn,
Right,
is there
right,
other
right, right,
options?
right.
No, probably not, correct?
There's not that many, because, we didn't want to in any way encroach on net zero, right? So we're not looking at any reduction there. We didn't really wanna make the reductions at the gym and the cafeteria were things where intentionally were oversizing them, so we didn't wanna
Mhm.
reduce program in any way.
What does it save us to, like, for example, the full softball field replacement versus half softball field replacement? Do you know what the
Can we pull
quantifiable
that
cost
as a
is?
line? Do you know?
Yeah, we do have that,
You don't, I'd just be
Yeah.
curious
we can
just to see like
provide
what
that,
we're,
yeah. I mean, it was significant.
It was significant.
Yeah.
it was.
Really?
Yeah.
So, quickly though, when we're building the size, we need a staging area. So, the chances of that infield being lost are high anyway. Right, it's gonna take substantial room to store product.
Could be beat up.
Yeah, you're right, cause they said that would be the staging area. The
So-
softball field, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
for the high school.
And
where
I,
we just,
and I know
softball
scale
field.
and orientation's probably not exact, but that infield is not where the infield is currently.
That's showing the new.
That's right,
Yeah, that's
this is
the new
showing
one.
the,
Yeah.
this
So
is showing.
that's the whole new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Right,
But
right.
very
Yeah,
good high.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we did not go with the new one, then not only would we have some concerns with the field, but we also have less parking?
It does have some amount of impact on
Right,
that spot.
so what we would do is maintain the same parking count that you have today.
Right.
It-
But the design here increased it by some number, I forget. from 77 to 89 or something like that.
91.
Again, for what it's worth, and again, I've been on the calls, if I missed
Yeah.
this, I missed it, but for what it's worth, and I'm just one person, I absolutely have a concern over spending upwards of $80 million for a school and not having, and then just having what I think some of us consider an inadequate softball field. And not knowing the difference between cost of a 125 kW and a 250 kW generator, also not having an appropriate shelter, because I thought the 250 was small. They were talking about doing the whole school, which we did not need. So I don't know what the difference in cost is. My knowledge of generators is that it's probably a small number comparable to the $80 million of a school, but I'm not sure the difference between the two generators. Would you know, either one of you? I know.
We also have
Okay.
that.
You or Adam, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, and
How
then
big the one was
maybe
that
If I just
bought.
figured I'd throw out things.
what else, what would be next? Like if the committee or the building advisory committee and the school committee decided, no, the generator is really, really important to us, like what would be the next thing that you would propose cutting? Because what I'm hearing is something has to get get adjusted or added in, and so I think that is the question there. I get though in this process that it might be, something is gonna probably have to fall off the list to hit that number. Is that a reasonable request? You're all making a face like it's not.
No.
You're all making a sad face.
I just that we know that we rack our brains for these things.
No, I
and,
get
and,
it.
and also not wanting to overly reduce things like contingency
Mhm.
so early in
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah,
and
there is a
taken some-
possibility that if all goes well, these could get added back in as
Right.
contingency happens. So this is
Absolutely.
just like the short list for right now, and then it could get added back in as the
That's
project
exactly
evolves.
Right. Yeah. The thinking with an alternate is, as I said, the design team continues to design them all,
Yeah.
and we continue to price them at stage 3 at the.
So if you
the
have enough
different-
money,
yeah.
you're ready to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
As we go forward, the contingencies will be reduced, there might
Yep.
be other
Yep.
items that we have in there, cause
Yeah.
that we have in there for soil replacement
Mhm.
or, even thinking like cost for building the walls behind where the fields are, right?
Mhm.
All of that, we're gonna keep looking at where the needs are as
Right.
far as cost estimates,
Exactly.
which can go down, which then we can bring these alternates back in as we go through this process.
That's exactly the strategy.
Right.
So
Right
as
now,
time goes
this
on, you have
cost
more
is-
information.
Right now, what we have done, we've made some reductions to be able to stay within budget for
Correct.
submission. And as we keep going back for
Yeah.
all of these designs and the work and the cost, and we'd be able to look at what is going to come off and what we're adding back.
Yes, and that's the strategy. We don't wanna have it taken off the table
Mhm.
because as we move forward, we might find that there's more available.
But we could take a look at what it would take to improve the infield to the softball, but keep it in its current location for the base bid. I mean, that's significantly less expensive than shifting the whole entire field, backstop everything along with it. So we can take a look at that with our team, make sure that that's accounted for.
So these items can potentially be added in or removed or manipulated a little bit in the next phase, stage 3. There are some items that, for example, are harder to manipulate, such as the net zero, the PVs, the geothermal, because when we submit that to RIDE for reimbursement and for approval and for review, they look at some of those things, and those are sort of like the promises, right? So the district is promising to do this, and they approve the submission based on those items, based on those scopes. But things like half the field, a full field, bigger field, smaller field, whether it's those decision-making, that decision-making process, you have a chance. Again, it's just this exercise is to understand that the building can be built and designed and functional and acceptable, and then things start moving.
Understood.
Just a quick.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to question. Going back to there was a possibility of putting a stage in the cafeteria and a possibility of adding more stands in the gym.
There will be a stage.
Yeah.
That doesn't go
Yeah,
away.
That's why I just because I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Those two
Yeah.
things.
No, it's just the making the dining part of the cafeteria a little bit bigger for events, for performances.
Yeah, that's,
and
okay,
things
yeah,
like
that's
that.
good. That's what you need, someplace for events and
Right.
you need to have.
One quick question about the generators. Are you talking about a storm switch that's separate?
Storm switch?
Right, well, you have the generator that's hooked to the building, it's at 125 or whatever the number
Yep.
was. And then, you had talked about having the generator hookup. Is that considered like a storm switch, so you bring in your outside generator to additionally feed to the building?
Yeah, I hadn't heard it called storm switch, but yes, absolutely, it sounds like we're talking about the same thing, yes, just
So
another
that's-
hookup.
That circuit could be larger if we had let's just say we had a long-term scenario where we had to use it for emergency.
Right,
We could bring in an off-site generator, plug it in there, that circuit could be larger to handle the hookup at the kitchen and
Yeah.
gym.
correct, and the intent there is, you know, if there's a power outage that, you know, 125, 250, whatever it is, that supports it, but then, you know, if there's a weather event or something where it's gonna be a week or 2 weeks or whatever without power, then yeah, you'd bring in that, you'd trailer in a generator and, yeah, use that, hookup to power that for that period. And, yeah, and support more of the building, correct.
And then you would somehow have to shut off the existing generator.
Generate, correct,
Let
yep.
that-
That is done through controls and software, but yeah, absolutely, that's part of,
Okay, just make sure I understood the additional hookup correctly, and then how you
Yes.
guys might be able to utilize that to solve both needs.
right.
Not sure if we wanna take a recess with,
Yeah, just
Ken and
because
Ralph
Ken
have
and
to
Ralph
step
need to
out
step
real
out, possibly for the same reason, possibly for different, who knows? I'll just make a motion to do a quick 5-minute recess.
second.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor?
Because we just reconvened, so sorry about that delay, we didn't reconvene, it seemed like we were coming to a conclusion to that question anyway, so I just thought, you know, 2 concerns, I just put it on the table, it seems like I know why you did it. We've, you know, we built a lot of different buildings over the years, and I know you have to have these alternates, and they're never fun to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you worked them out, just wanted to share 2 concerns, again, on the shelter and on the field itself, and the lack of parking and the status of the field, but thank you, and we'll, look forward to hearing about the next steps.
Yep.
Thank you.
And also, if you all don't mind just providing like the the quantifiable number, like the numbers associated with these, I think that'd be helpful too, because then if it is something like the generator and the difference is something, maybe the town, we can think about a creative solution to getting what we need in partnership or something like that. So I think having those numbers would be helpful too, if we do get to the place where we can't do them, and knowing what we would need to come up with if we wanted to put in a generator for emergency, for example.
That's the next slide.
Is it the last slide? Oh, this one,
That's the
okay.
next one, yeah, you.
Target budget.
CIP is this,
CIP.
okay.
Oh,
No, so we have our team from, our guys from Rouse Architects, they're, putting together all the documents, in their scope for the CIP, projects. We have the updated, just slightly, I believe it's a little bit updated, right? Is that to do with the
Yeah, I went
CIP?
through each item on here for the estimates that most recent estimates that we received from Rouse, so it is slightly under the last estimates, and there are changes in here, and we can go through those changes right now, do a cross-reference if you want. And I have it.
You have it, yeah.
So I have the differences.
Yes, so we should do that.
So everyone has a copy of the most recent estimates from Rouse. It's dated September 3rd. And so there are slight changes within the estimates. And I don't know if you want to help provide an explanation with those changes. But if we look at the first page, Davisville Academy. And so there's a slight increase in the cost of the roof of the Davisville Academy, and an additional project on here, which is to remove the wooden step over the ladder platform assemblies and provide galvanized steel step over the ladder platform.
That was not an additional item,
No.
it's been in there the whole time.
I think the only difference that Dave was
So
looking
that
at
was
me was
not
the
on,
roof.
so when I went,
It was in there. Well, I don't know that sheet.
yeah, this was the last one that we brought forward to the school
See,
committee.
this is mine,
Okay,
so I don't know, but that's always
Okay,
been in
that
there.
was-
It's always been
that
part
I
of the,
highlighted because it wasn't on.
okay,
the
it
sheet
was
I
always
had.
part of the cost.
Okay,
Let's
Was-
put it that way, how's that? So maybe it wasn't, broken out as the A11
Okay, all right, well,
and the
that's-
ladder, but
you're
it's
saying you
always,
saw it on there?
No, I knew,
it's always been part of the cost though.
Okay, but it's broken
Maybe it
down
has
now,
its own
explaining
special
what
line
that,
now.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Mhm.
that's on there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was always part of that cost though.
What about under Stony Lane for the observed gaps at pitch skylight windows, potential leak points for 1900?
So that was also always part of the cost.
Part of that, it's just
It's
being
just
called out.
broken out,
Okay.
yep. Yep.
And then the biggest change I noticed was under the vestibules with the increase in cost
Yes.
there.
So we went back to the estimator and I had her look at all of the vestibules. And we reviewed all of that and we got the numbers to be more consistent with the square footages, the systems that are going in for each one of the vestibules. And so then the costs balance themselves out better. So some of them were close to what they were before, others changed more dramatically.
Right, look at Quineset was the biggest change.
Yes, yeah,
So,
but they all, so she went back and she looked at all that and the cost per square foot and the systems that we're using, and that allowed for that reevaluation of those vestibules so that this is more on target for what we need in there.
okay, what's the
She-
biggest difference from the
The
previous
biggest
estimate
difference
to now
was
for
the
Quineset?
hardware, the door hardware and the electronics that we need for the fob systems and the security. That was the biggest change on every single school,
Okay.
was that. Yeah.
Even with this increase, we're still under a little bit from the previous
Yes,
estimate.
yeah,
like the
because
total cost
you know,
of the
right, as you go
projects.
through the list, just like,
Mhm.
you know, Perkins Eastman's has said, as you go through these projects, you know, some projects might get a little bit higher, but other things might get a little bit lower. So it balanced out fairly well.
And the other highlight I had, looking at interior, under plumbing for Davisville Middle School,
Okay.
it's the cost for the upgrading the, toilet and fixtures for the bathrooms.
So are we looking at the P1 number or the
It's
A18?
A18, that just,
The
that went up,
A18?
that went up slightly.
Right, it did, so that got looked at as a whole again. For finishes, we looked at the actual flooring types that are in there and, estimated that and got a better number, a better handle on that one as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the new project total cost, estimate total is $64,383,900.
Correct. Mhm.
Slightly under what we had.
Yeah,
Anyone have any questions on this updated estimates?
So in general, I guess we are working towards submitting all the items that are needed for the checklist. So we are going to work just up to the deadline. There's drawings, there's estimates, budgets, write-ups, various studies that we have to include. We have been updating the Google link that we have shared a while back, which I can also share. I don't know if Dr. Dubé, if you can share it on the screen, if possible.
Yeah,
or-
I see change these over.
I just had a couple quick questions,
Mhm.
if you don't mind, about just kind of like the things that are included in this as before
Oh,
we
yeah,
do
no,
the
no, I'm
6
sorry.
weeks.
Oh, yeah,
Alright.
absolutely, yes.
I just was curious about, for parking, electric charging stations, if you all were pursuing that or even, or just considering maybe conduit for it.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
it impacts Northeast Chips, we have to have a minimum of 2. too.
Okay, so there'll be,
With Carrie too, yep,
so that's the plan for that.
yep,
And then, inclusive restrooms,
yes.
Yes.
how many, do you know?
Um,
Mm.
1, 2, 3, I think 3 open to the corridors, and then we have one specific for physical education.
Yep, for
Which
changing.
has a changing room and a restroom
So 3
incorporated.
plus changing your
Yes,
restrooms.
so, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Or 4 plus a changing room. Yep.
And then one of, the other questions was, on the Tower Hill Road, there's a sign that the middle school currently uses where they put like notices to the public, for lack of a better word, and it's one of those old ones that I can imagine
Oh,
maybe
with the
Dave goes
letters?
out and puts the little black letters in. Has there been any thoughts for signage or maybe conduit for signage for maybe an electric board in the future, or?
There is a cost held, for a sign on Tower Hill and there's and Phillips.
Okay.
It not a, you know, a modest cost for.
So not an electric one, just a plain?
We'll have to kind of go to that next level to sort of see what
Yeah.
could be included.
Yeah, I think that might just be, maybe just something to look at, even if we don't put the sign in right away. I know if you put conduit in early, it can help you long-term, and so something just to look at in this process. And then just the last question I had, was about the history preservation and the money that might be needed for that, making sure that that's in this cost as well.
That would be in a soft cost.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was built into that, so it wasn't a surprise if we have to do anything.
There is a line item that's called other owner costs, and that built whatever we may need for that remediation, if you will,
Okay.
is in there, and that value plus or minus, I think it's, I don't know.
It's okay, as long as
But
it's, I just wanted to make sure it was in
There
there.
is money for that, right.
Yep.
We
Perfect.
don't know yet what that is, but we did submit to Historic Society.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you to elaborate on one of Dr. Hill's questions on the inclusive restrooms? So, explain to me what the restroom facilities are going to be like in this new Woodford Middle School.
Well, we have a number of single-use ADA accessible, fully accessible restrooms for faculty and for universal usage. And we also have group restrooms for boys and girls, which are located, one main one, actually we just close it. One directly adjacent to the assembly spaces, right when you walk in the front door for an assembly, it's close. And then we have one on each floor for the main academic spaces. There are also restrooms dedicated for each of the 2 changing rooms, locker rooms for the PE sections. So then it's distributed throughout, also within the administrative suite, the guidance area, and nurse as well, there are restrooms located throughout. So we also take in travel distances for teachers into account when they're laying these out. That's really usually the first spot that they look for when reviewing the plan, is where's the closest bathroom. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We also have an ambulatory restroom in the nurse's suite with a shower. It's a little bit larger, more accessible space.
Thank you.
Right, so I was just going to say that we are populating this link, and we have, I would say, maybe at the moment, I can't really quantify percentage wise, but I would say maybe 85% is uploaded. I think we did have the estimate where I think the drawings we have, most of the drawings we have from Rouse, we're still working on some sort of narratives that are required in the feasibility study section, etc. So what we ask from the committee today is to sort of bless and approve us to submit to RIDE, and knowing that there is an opportunity to issue an addendum within 2 weeks. So on the 16th, if I could submit, and there is a vote to submit, because we do need to let RIDE know that the school building committee and school committee ultimately approved the submission. Once everything is there, everyone is welcome. We will share a link one more time, and is welcome to read through all the documents, and if there's any comments, concerns, revisions that we have to make, or you would like us to make, we can make by the end of the month. We're planning to issue the first addendum, and then there might be another one following once RIDE comes back with comments, because what will happen They will review within a few weeks, 2, 3, could be 4 weeks, and then they will issue a set of comments, questions, remarks, concerns, which we will have to address one more time and issue another addendum.
So you're asking for the building committee to approve the
Yes.
stage 2 application? Has that-
Submitting it.
Submitting, I'm sorry.
Right.
And then the school committee's already approved the submission, or they're waiting for us?
That's
We'll do it on
That's
Thursday.
And then the council after that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's okay that the council meeting isn't until the 23rd, we're all good on that,
Yes.
right?
Correct. We have a memo that went out went out for signatures stating that there is, it's on the agenda. So,
Okay.
and I did talk to Wright about it. It's okay.
Do we have something back from them in writing?
From
I'm not
them.
joking. Just acknowledging the fact that they know there'll be a delay in that last piece.
I have emails.
Okay, that's writing. No, I just think it's important, I don't want us to miss out on something due to a technicality.
Absolutely.
We have emails
Perfect.
that you've had back and forth with them, so.
Yes. And it's not uncommon for this to happen, so every submission I've had something like that, and they don't, the school committee is the most important approval.
So at this point, we're looking for an approval from this committee
Yes.
to submit a stage 2 application that'll include the design and build of the new Woodford Middle School, which we reviewed with those cost estimates, as well as the capital improvement projects that we had reviewed as well. So I'll make, does anyone else wanna make a motion? Make a motion, that we, approve the submittal of the stage 2 application to RIDE for, a new Woodford Middle School and the, capital improvement projects with a total cost of $141,453,470.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll bring this to school committee on Thursday evening. As far as next meeting date, I would like to get a regular meeting on the, books for us, to meet at least monthly. We've been meeting on Mondays, so if Mondays continue to work, I'll ask Jules to put dates out there for all of us. Make sure it's a Monday that doesn't coincide with a town council meeting.
Or if it does, just at 5 or 5:30,
Yeah.
that way, 5 o'clock, so I can make the council meeting, because actually that's pretty good meeting.
Yeah, and as long as, originally there was, at least on my calendar, there was a policy meeting, which did not happen next week, so that's why we made this later. But we will work on these meetings being at 5 o'clock, instead of 6 o'clock, at 5 o'clock time.
Under that scenario, council meeting wouldn't conflict, so that's great.
Okay, alright, so we'll do that, and then we'll get a regular, every Monday, once a month, we'll have a meeting. We'll get that over for Monday meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.